I sat in my small, dimly lit living room, staring at an old family photograph on the wall. My parents were smiling, my siblings standing proudly beside them, but I wasn't there, not really. For 25 years, I've lived a life where my own family barely remembered I existed. The house creaked under my weight as I moved to make a cup of tea. The wind whispered through the cracks in the window, rustling the overgrown garden I tended every morning. That garden has been my only companion, a quiet reminder that life can still grow even when people leave you behind. My phone lay on the table, silent. No messages, no missed calls. I've stopped expecting anything from them, though a small, stubborn part of me still wonders, will they ever come back? I wasn't always this alone. I had dreams, laughter, and hope once, but the visits stopped. Birthdays went uncelebrated, holidays passed in silence. Invitations to weddings and family gatherings never came. I learned to live with the emptiness, but I never let it break me, because I had a secret, something they didn't know, something they could never take. I own 120 acres of land, lush, green, hidden away from prying eyes. I've nurtured it for decades, patiently, quietly. It isn't just land, it's my sanctuary. My proof that I don't need them to survive. I take a sip of tea and glance toward the horizon. Beyond the dusty streets of my town, past the houses that line the empty streets, lies my land, silent now, but one day it will speak for me. Henry, my old friend, warned me once, one day they'll come back, Samuel, and it won't be to see you. They'll want what's yours. I smiled, politely, but deep down I never doubted him. I've been patient. I've learned to wait, to observe, and I know the world will have to see me differently someday. The day drifts slowly. I move through the rooms, tidying, reading old letters, laughing at memories long past. Still, the house feels hollow, like my life sometimes feels hollow. But there's a quiet strength in me now. I've endured neglect, betrayal, and silence, and I've survived. I sit back, letting the quiet wrap around me, listening to the wind through my hidden land. Somewhere out there, change is stirring, and when it comes, they'll finally see that I've been here all along, stronger, wiser, and ready. I've always kept my life simple, but my 120 acres of land is the one part of me no one has ever touched. People see the small house I live in and assume I have nothing. They don't know the truth. They never will, unless I choose to let them. Every morning, I walk the edges of my land. The trees sway gently in the wind. The streams sparkle like scattered diamonds under the sunlight, and the fields stretch farther than the eye can see. It's my kingdom, my refuge. Every tree, every stone, every corner has a story. I planted some, nurtured others, and let nature take care of the rest. No one has ever walked here without my permission. Not my siblings, not neighbors, not even distant relatives. For 25 years, I've built and protected this place quietly, like a secret whispered only to myself, and it has been worth it. Henry visits sometimes. He's the only one I trust completely. He comes by, not out of pity, but curiosity and friendship. One afternoon, while we were walking along the old fence line, he stopped and said, "Samuel, you've done something amazing here, but mark my words, people will come back when they hear about this. And it won't be for you, they'll want the land." I nodded, sipping my tea as the breeze carried the scent of wildflowers and damp earth. I had thought of that possibility myself, but what could they do? For years, they ignored me, treated me like I didn't exist. Now, suddenly, I'm a man who owns something valuable, and they think that changes everything. That's when I noticed the first signs. Strange cars driving slowly past the house. A neighbor whispering too loudly, glancing toward my land. Unfamiliar faces peeking through the fence at odd hours. Nothing concrete yet, but it was enough to make me alert. I take no chances. I watch, I wait, and I observe. Patience has been my greatest ally. While my family may return someday, thinking they can take what is mine, I have decades of experience in reading people. Greed has a way of showing itself in tiny gestures, in nervous laughter, in a glance that lingers too long. And yet, there's an odd part of me that wonders, after all these years of silence, will they even recognize me? Will they see the man I've become, or will they only see the land, the wealth, the opportunity they've been dreaming of? For now, I let them remain in the shadows. I continue my work on the land, repairing fences, planting new trees, and walking along the streams. This land is my history, my labor, my proof that I survived when everyone else forgot me. But I know this: the quiet will not last forever. Eventually they will come, and when they do, I will be ready. I will know who is here for me and who is here for the acres I've worked for all these years. I never thought I would see them again, not after 25 years of silence. And yet, there they were, walking up the dusty road toward my small house. My heart didn't leap, didn't even skip a beat. It was calm, controlled. I had waited for this day in my own way, and I knew that patience had prepared me for it. My siblings, grown older and heavier with the weight of their own lives, looked at me with polite smiles that didn't reach their eyes. They acted as if the years hadn't mattered, as if the neglect and absence were nothing but a faint shadow. But I remembered. I remembered every harsh word, every forgotten birthday, every silent holiday when I had hoped they might care. I had been invisible for decades, and yet they expected me to welcome them with open arms. "Samuel," my oldest sister said, her voice trembling slightly, "it's been so long." She paused, glancing around, eyes lingering on the empty rooms, the small furniture, the worn-out carpet. We wanted to see you." I nodded slowly, offering a polite smile. "It has been a long time," I said. My voice was steady, calm, but underneath it, a storm brewed. I could feel it. Every gesture, every word was measured. I had spent years observing people like this, and I knew how to read them. They didn't come empty-handed. Flowers, expensive chocolates, even a bottle of wine. They expected gratitude. They expected warmth. They wanted to erase the years of neglect with trinkets. I let them place their gifts on the table, careful not to touch them yet. As we sat, conversation flowed, but it was cautious, forced, like walking on ice. I asked about their lives, their work, their families. They returned the questions, but I noticed the small details: glances at my windows, subtle curiosity in their voice, the way their eyes flicked to the horizon, as if expecting something beyond the house. That's when I knew they had heard rumors. Whispers about my land, about the 120 acres I had kept hidden, tended, and protected all these years. Their politeness was a mask, thin and fragile. Greed had a way of revealing itself, even when it was hidden under smiles and soft words. I decided to test them gently. I mentioned the garden I had planted years ago, the streams I had cleaned by hand, the trees I had nurtured. I watched their reactions carefully, a flicker of surprise, a flash of interest, and then a hesitation, almost guilty, as if they were calculating the value of what I had built. Even as they laughed at old memories, I felt the tension in the air. Something had shifted. The silence of decades was breaking, replaced by curiosity, by desire. by something they could no longer hide. I stayed calm, but inside, I prepared. I knew this was only the beginning. For years, I had been patient. For years, I had built something they could never imagine. And now, they were here. Not for me, not for the memories or the years of connection we had lost. They were here for what I had created. And I would watch carefully, wait patiently, and let them reveal themselves, because one wrong move, one misstep, and they would see that I had changed, that I was no longer the invisible Samuel they had left behind. I knew their visit wasn't about catching up. Their polite smiles, careful words, and sudden interest in my life were all part of a performance. They wanted something, and I had waited long enough to see it. So I decided to test them. "The land," I said casually one afternoon, as we sat in the garden I had cultivated for decades, "has changed a lot over the years. You should come see it. The streams are flowing nicely, and the fields are ready for planting." Their eyes widened slightly. I could feel it, the flicker of greed they couldn't hide. My eldest brother's hand trembled as he reached for his glass of water. My sister's polite smile faltered for the first time. That subtle shift was all I needed to confirm my suspicion. They were here for the land, not me. The next day, I decided to let them walk part of the property. I guided them slowly, pointing out a new row of trees I had planted, the fences I had repaired, and the old barn I had restored. I watched carefully as they took in every detail, pretending interest, but their minds were elsewhere. Then came the first twist. As we reached the edge of the property, I noticed my youngest cousin lingering near the old tool shed. When I asked why, she stumbled, mumbling about the scenery, but I caught the glint of curiosity in her eyes. Later, I discovered she had been sneaking around, taking mental notes of where I kept the keys and tools. Greed, disguised as admiration, was showing itself in the smallest ways. I smiled inwardly. This was exactly the reaction I had expected. Over the years, I had built more than land. I had built traps, small measures of protection, and secrets within secrets. Nothing could be taken without my knowledge, and I intended to make them reveal themselves completely before I decided what to do next. That evening, over dinner, I dropped another subtle hint. "The barn still has the old safe," I said lightly, "with some documents I've kept for decades. Nothing important, just reminders of the past." My words were casual, almost indifferent, but their reactions were anything but. Eyes widened, hands froze, and a nervous laugh escaped my sister. I saw it, the first real crack in their carefully maintained facades. I could feel the tension rising. My heart remained steady, but inside, excitement coursed through me. For 25 years, I had endured silence, neglect, and betrayal. Now, I held the power. I was no longer invisible, no longer weak, and certainly no longer a victim of their greed. And then came the moment I had been waiting for. A strange car appeared at the edge of the property, far enough away to seem accidental, yet it wasn't. My cousin froze, staring at the vehicle. My siblings exchanged glances, too subtle for them to hide completely. Someone was watching, and suddenly I realized they weren't just curious, they had started to act. I smiled to myself, calm on the outside, but ready. Patience had brought me here. Observation had prepared me. And now the true test was about to begin. They were stepping into my world, my 120 acres, and they had no idea what was waiting for them. I had waited 25 years for this moment. Every insult, every ignored birthday, every holiday spent alone had led me here. And now my family was finally in front of me, wandering through the land I had built with my own hands. I watched them carefully as they admired the streams, the fields, and the barn. Their smiles were polite, but hollow. Their eyes betrayed them the glimmer of greed, the curiosity, the subtle fear of what they didn't yet understand. They thought they were walking into a paradise they could claim, but they were stepping into my domain. "Samuel," my eldest brother said, trying to sound casual, "this place, it's incredible. I never imagined you'd, have all this." I nodded slowly. "It took a long time," I said calmly, letting the words linger, "and a lot of patience. I decided it was time to reveal just enough to show them they could not take what was mine." I led them toward the old barn, where the safe still held documents proving the land's ownership. But I didn't show them the key or the combination. I merely hinted at it. I could see the subtle panic building in their eyes. Then came the twist I had been waiting for. My youngest cousin, the one who had been sneaking around earlier, stepped forward, trying to act casual. Maybe we can help you manage this place, Samuel," she said, her voice shaking slightly, but I could see through her. Her words were meant to manipulate, to gain access. I smiled, calm and steady. "I appreciate the offer," I said, "but this land has been mine for decades. I built it, nurtured it, and protected it. It belongs to me, and only I decide who steps onto it with trust." They froze. My words hit them harder than any argument could. The truth was clear. Their long absence, their neglect, and now their greed had all been seen, observed, and remembered. They realized I had changed. I was no longer the boy they left behind. For a moment, silence fell over the fields. The only sounds were the wind through the trees and the faint rush of the stream. I felt a strange satisfaction, not in revenge, but in justice. I had waited, I had watched, and I had finally reclaimed control of my life and my land. Some tried to apologize, some tried to explain, but words no longer mattered. Actions mattered, and their actions had shown their true selves long before this confrontation. I walked away from the barn, letting them see the expanse of the 120 acres behind me. Every tree, every field, every corner was mine. I would not let them taint it. I had waited, and now I was free from their judgment, from their neglect, and from their greed. As I turned back to the house, a sense of calm washed over me. I was Samuel, alone if I chose, strong because I had endured, and finally in full control of my destiny. The land had been my secret, my sanctuary, and now my triumph. They could return tomorrow, next month, or next year, but nothing they could do would ever change what I had built, or who I had become. I smiled to myself. For 25 years, I waited, and now I finally had peace. And that's how I finally reclaimed my life and my 120 acres of land. After 25 years of silence and neglect, I proved that patience, wisdom, and resilience are more powerful than greed. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more incredible tales of suspense, secrets, and unexpected twists. What would you do if you were in my shoes? Let me know in the comments below. I'd love to read your thoughts. Remember, sometimes the greatest victories are the ones you keep quiet until the time is right.